The Trade Federation, one of the main governing bodies of the Confederacy of Independent Systems, as well as largely been responsible for the Clone Wars. But what is the Trade Federation and what are their goals? Well, the Trade Federation is a trading cartel megacorporation which trades all manner of goods all around the galaxy. Due to the vast range of goods that are only available on certain planets and worlds, it means that entire star systems will rely on trade to survive. It's for this reason that the Trade Federation has managed to dominate entire star systems, which has given them huge amounts of power, enough for them to have their own seat in the Galactic Republic Senate, which are usually reserved for the actual leaders of systems. Now, in the films and etc., we primarily see Neumodians as the leaders of the Trade Federation, and for this reason it's easy to believe that the Trade Federation was created by and for Neumodians. Well, that's not exactly true. The Trade Federation was founded in 350 BBY by different colonies made up of multiple species, including Neumodians, as it would allow many different colonies to easily trade with one another and therefore prosper from it. Now, the Trade Federation didn't become solely a Neumodian monopoly until 33 BBY, when the governing 6 members of the Directorate, which is basically the governing body of the Trade Federation, were mysteriously murdered, leaving only the Viceroy, Nute Gunray. Now, the Viceroy is sort of the person on top who will then feed commands down to the Directorate, but the Directorate can kind of not necessarily overdo the Viceroy's power, but they definitely have a decent amount of say to stop the Viceroy from going mad with power. Now, Viceroy Gunray replaced the dead 6 members of the Directorate with 6 Neumodians who he would be able to use as his puppets. Now, very few knew at this time Viceroy himself was actually a puppet of the Sith Lord Darth Sidious, but that comes into the story far later. Now, this next part is going to sound incredibly racist against Neumodians, but there is a reason Sidious chose to use Gunray and the other Neumodians to his whim, and that's because Neumodians are cursed with greed. You see, when Neumodians are born, they spend their first 7 years in a communal hive, where they're somewhat neglected and not given enough food. The Neumodians, however, do this for a reason, as it ensures that their most acquisitive young can get the most food and grow, whilst the others, well, they starve. Ultimately, this ensures that the smartest of the Neumodians survive and the others are somewhat weeded out, meaning Neumodians tend to be natural-born businessmen. For this reason, Neumodians have a negative stereotype for being insatiably greedy as well as incredibly lazy, which is evident from the huge amounts of droids that they use. It's a common sort of theme that the most difficult concept for a Neumodian to grasp is the concept of loyalty. For that reason, a lot of people don't trust them. As well as this, Neumodians can be easily tempted from the idea of having more wealth, which is of course a tempting target for anybody hoping to exploit others. The Trade Federation has grown exponentially since its creation. They prize themselves on their hyperspace routes, which they hold very closely as a trade secret. These routes allow them to move goods from one place to another faster than any competitors. In fact, it's only people such as the Grand Chancellor of the Republic who can get maps anywhere near the quality of the Trade Federations. They're that good. The Federation is far from a group of peaceful traders, however, who are just looking to make some honest credits. Gunray struck a deal with the Bactoid Droid Workshop to create them a droid army, which they would use to protect their interests around the galaxy, or whatever they saw as theirs, which often didn't actually belong to them. Now, this droid army would prove perfectly capable until the events of Naboo, but more about that. Gunray and the Trade Federation had strongly opposed the Republic's decision to introduce a tax on the Free Trade Zone, which was a zone where you could do your trading without paying any tax or commission towards the Republic. Now, ultimately, losing this free trade zone meant that the Federation would lose out on profits, and if it's one thing that the Federation cares about, it's their profits. For this reason, they chose to blockade the planet Naboo, ultimately stopping any ships entering or leaving the planet. Now, they did this to starve the planet of any resources and ultimately stop trade, which would mean the people of Naboo would suffer. They did this to somewhat frighten any other planets or systems that supported the tax. But it was Sidious who ordered his puppet, Gunray, to invade Naboo, which caused a split in the Federation. Some groups within it, primarily made up of other races apart from Neimoidians, thought it would end the Federation and then chose to leave, but they were just replaced by more Neimoidians, which only gave Gunray more power, as he used them as his puppets, similar to what he did with the Directorate. Now, we all know how it ended. Now, the reason why the Trade Federation was defeated is quite simple. The leaders of the Federation are notoriously greedy and unwilling to spend their credits. This, in the past, has allowed them to be profitable, but when organising a military movement, it can be a very, very big flaw. The Federation trade fleet was made up from Lucrehulk-classed frigates, which were ultimately cargo ships. But the leaders of the Federation were unwilling to invest further credits on real warships. Instead, they chose to simply upgrade their frigates with appropriate equipment such as cannons and communication arrays to be more defensive and offensive, turning them into 3-kilometer wide warships. But they still lacked fundamentals of real warships, and therefore they were not exactly capable of fighting off a real attack. As well as this, the Federation chose to use their standing droid army. Unfortunately, they kind of skimped out on the payment for them as well. They failed to invest credits on their droids by fitting them with droid brains, and that's the real term, which meant the droids received all their information from the blockading frigates, and we know how that ended, ultimately meaning that all the droids could be destroyed from one location. So yeah, the reason that the Trade Federation failed on Naboo is because these misers decided that they would rather keep the profits for themselves as opposed to invest them in their army and ships. Now, around 24 BBY, Count Dooku gathered the disgruntled corporations such as the Trade Federation and the Techno Union and formed the Confederacy of Independent Systems, or CIS, which of course resulted in the beginning of the Clone Wars when Nute Gunray attempted to assassinate Padme Amidala because of the fiasco on Naboo. Now, pre the Clone Wars and during the Clone Wars, the Federation continued to expand its militancy, learning from its mistakes, with its new allies in the Techno Union making them powerful droids, as well as implementing new ships into their fleet. Ultimately, it made them a far more aggressive force as opposed to just trying to stop traders. They knew they'd have to deal with real wars. Now, we know how the Clone Wars went and how it ended. Upon Viceroy Gunray's death on Mustafar, the droid armies, including the Federation's, were all disabled. The Federation, however, did survive. Somewhat. Officially, in return for not completely wiping them out, the Federation gave Emperor Palpatine unrestricted use of their resources, whilst others invested their dwindling supplies in causes such as the Rebellion, as somewhat as a payback for Palpatine betraying them. Ultimately, they never returned to their former glory without the leadership from Nute Gunray and many other things such as their allies in the Separatist Alliance. They were unable to bounce back. Similar to pretty much every other organisation in the Confederacy of Independent Systems. Thank you for watching this lore video about the Trade Federation. I'm continuing to go through the Confederacy of Independent Systems with some of their main factions, such as the Techno Union. I do hope that you enjoyed. If you do want more of this lore, please do like, comment, and subscribe. Videos are going to be coming out weekly for Star Wars lore, so I hope you're excited as I am. I'm sorry this one's a bit late, but I do not do well with timetables. Hope you enjoyed. Please like, comment, and subscribe, and I'll see you next time.